Today we're testing out the Tip Top Temp out on the Weber kettle, and some say it makes it so easy to cook that it's just like using a pellet grill with perfect temperature control. We're going to find out here in a second. The first thing I noticed when I took it out of the box were the little numbers on the dial on the side. Oddly enough, the instructions said to ignore those. There also wasn't a marking to say what those actually meant or represented or where you would line it up for the chart that they gave in the second set of instructions. The edges on the Tip Top Temp were pretty rough and a bit sharp, and I didn't want them nuzzling up against my kettle. So I took off the burrs using a grinding wheel on my Dremel, and then I smoothed up the edges with a grinding bit. The Tip Top Temp works by controlling the airflow out of the top vent. It just covers it right up. We're going to have to work on that one. The Tip Top Temp is meant to sit directly over the vent, but the insulated knob on the Master Touch kettle gets in the way. It should work with the regular kettles though. It came with a silicone ring that we can use to make a decent seal to force the exhaust gases through the Tip Top Temp and help us still control it. The Tip Top Temp works by opening and closing the damper in response to changes in temperature. As the coil heats up, it expands and closes the damper to reduce airflow, and if the temperature decreases, the coil shrinks and opens the damper, letting more air in. The knob on the side adjusts the tension on the coil, which sets the temperatures that it'll open and close for. I started up the kettle just like I always do for low and slow by lighting about a dozen briquettes. We're going to let these get fully lit so that it comes up to temp. I wanted to give the Tip Top Temp a real low and slow test with a picnic roast. The picnic roast comes with the skin attached, but it has a ton of flavor. Just make sure that you remove the skin before you smoke it. You can take that skin and make pork rinds or cook the skin to flavor up some beans. This roast has a destiny with tacos, so I coated the outside with Tabasco sauce to give it a spicy kick. Then I added the salt first so I could see exactly how much salt I put on to make sure that I didn't oversalt it. Next, add some chili powder, followed by some paprika, add a little cumin, black pepper, and finally a touch of cinnamon. Then I adjusted the vents on the kettle to keep it from getting too hot. I have to warn you, the method I'm about to show you didn't work for me at first, but I wanted you to learn from my fail. The instructions say to put the Tip Top Temp on the top vent once the kettle has reached the desired temperature. In our case, that's 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Push it down slightly to get a good seal, and then, as the Tip Top Temp heats up, the damper is going to close slightly. Once it stops moving, adjust it so that it is nearly closed. Now there's some interpretation of the word nearly. The temperature dropped 50 degrees over the next 15 minutes. It was pretty obvious that was too much, and I tried adjusting the Tip Top Temp slightly and referenced the chart and noticed that I should have opened it way more. I assumed that part of the problem was the altitude and broke the rules by opening the bottom vent slightly to let some more air in. Once I did that, the temperature jumped back up into the normal range of about 225 degrees Fahrenheit, and I started cooking. I recorded the Tip Top Temp over the next hour or so to see how it worked, and it kept the temperatures really steady. I only had to adjust it once during the cook as the water evaporated out of the slow and sear. The results were really good, and here's a view of the roast right before I wrapped it. After a few cooks with the Tip Top Temp, it's largely set it and forget it. However, you do have to know where to set it, and at first that can be a little bit of a challenge. Tip Top Temp provided a chart that gave you the dial settings for a given temperature in the Weber kettle. Unfortunately though, for me, it didn't match up to the cold temperatures here in Utah in the wintertime, and it also didn't account for the elevation. There's about 15% less oxygen here at the elevation compared to sea level. And that means that you have to open up the vents a little bit more than someone at sea level would. So I had to fiddle with those settings a bit to get it in the zone, which took a little bit, but I managed to make it work. If you have to fiddle with it, I wondered if there's a real benefit compared to just adjusting the vents manually. From experience, I can dial in a temperature and keep it there for 2 hours without touching the kettle. The Tip Top Temp can do that too, but that range will be a little bit smaller than what I could do with just the vents, and so that is one benefit. So I expected the Tip Top Temp to fully open and close as it adjusted the temperatures to keep it within the range. I was surprised though, it made micro adjustments, very small changes as it kept those temperatures going. Now, that automatic adjustment could come in handy, say in the summer, when the clouds part and the sun beats down on the kettle and raises up those temperatures, or if some other condition changes during the cook. So it's too early to give a recommendation either way, but if you're hoping to just dial in a temperature and walk away, you're likely going to be disappointed with the Tip Top Temp. It does hold a temperature really well once you get it dialed in and set where you need it though. Now there are lots of barbecue gizmos out there, and if there's more that you'd like me to test, put it down in the comments below and we'll see if we can make one for you.